morning, everybody. I am Miss Brenna, and I'm going to be in charge of doing most of your nutrition-related lessons for these Cooking Matters classes. And today, for our first one, we are going to focus on MyPlate. And I think this is probably something a lot of you guys have seen before. It's this poster right here. And what we're going to learn about today is what MyPlate is, why it's important to learn from it, and how we can use it to guide our food choices. So the first thing that you'll notice about MyPlate is that it's just an image of a plate, and it's divided up into the 5 food groups. This may also be something that you guys are familiar with, but I'm going to run through what the food groups are and what foods go into each food group so you can start getting familiar with that information if you don't know it. So the plate is divided up, like I said, into the 5 food groups. You have protein, vegetables, fruits, grains, and dairy. And I have some examples of foods that go into each of those food groups right here on the table. So if we start with the protein group, we have things like beef or chicken, or if you wanted a plant-based protein, we have things like beans and nuts and seeds. But for the most part, the foods that you are going to be familiar with that fit into that purple protein group are foods that are going to come from animals. Moving on to the dairy group, which is over here on the side, we have foods that are either made from milk or are milk. So I have a glass of milk right here. We have some yogurt or cheese, which could go on a sandwich, and we also have some ice cream. And all of those foods are made out of milk, so that's why they fit together into the dairy group. We can move over here to our grains section of MyPlate. Grains are going to be foods that are made from what we call cereal grains, and those are things like wheat, oats, rye, barley, and they are made into foods that you are going to be familiar with, like cereal, or crackers, or pasta, and also foods like bread and tortillas. So all of those foods are made from one type of cereal grain or another, and that's why they all fit into the grains group together. The last 2, vegetables and fruits, are the ones that I like talking about the most. And vegetables are going to be foods like spinach, broccoli, we have some carrots, we have corn, and also some potatoes. And those foods go into the vegetable group because they grow up from the ground and they don't have seeds inside of them. That's the big difference between the vegetable group and the fruit group, because now when we move over to the fruit section, you'll notice that all of these foods, even though they grow from the ground, they have seeds on the inside, and that's what makes them fruits as opposed to vegetables. So we have apples, we have some strawberries, we have an orange, and then banana and grapes right there in the front. So those are just some examples of foods that go into each of these food groups. You guys, like I said, may have known that already, but I wanted to give a little bit of an example of each one before we got started talking about why MyPlate is important. So if you look at the diagram, you'll notice that the plate is divided up into the 4 food groups, the 4 main ones on the larger section of the plate, and then dairy is off to the side. So the idea is that when you sit down to eat your meals, you would divide your plate up according to MyPlate. So you would have fruits and vegetables taking up half of the space on your plate. Then you would have grains taking up a quarter of your plate on the other side, and protein taking up a quarter of your plate, and then dairy would be off to the side. That would be, like I mentioned before, a glass of milk, or it might be some cheese on a sandwich, but it's not usually the main part of your meal. So we want to make sure that we're trying to eat from all 5 of the food groups every day. And the reason for that is because they all provide you with different good things that your body needs so that it can grow. So fruits and vegetables, for example, are going to provide you with a lot of vitamins and minerals. And those are things that we get from our food that are going to keep us healthy, they're going to help us grow, they're going to keep us strong, they're going to help us to not get sick, and that's really great. But some other foods have nutrients that fruits and vegetables don't have. So grains, for example, are going to provide you with a lot of fiber, which is going to keep you full for a longer period of time. And they also will get you some B vitamins, which helps you digest your food, that a lot of different fruits and vegetables don't have. Protein is full of protein, and that keeps our muscles strong so that you can lift things and run and jump and do all sorts of things that your muscles are really important for. And then your dairy section has a lot of calcium, which helps keep your bones strong. So you can see that all of the different food groups give you different things. And it's not that one is really better or worse than the other, they're just different. And so if you spent all of your time eating protein, for example, you would have really super strong muscles, but you might not have such strong bones, or you might not be able to digest your food as well, or you might notice that you get a lot of colds because you don't get as much vitamin C because you're not eating a lot of different fruits and vegetables. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you're eating from all 5 of the food groups every day. You may not be able to eat from all 5 at each meal. So, for example, maybe for breakfast you had some cereal and you had some milk on that cereal, and you cut up a banana to put inside of the cereal and eat with your cereal. That's great, but you didn't have any vegetables and you didn't have much protein. So maybe at lunch you can remember that, and at lunch you would make sure you're getting a lot of vegetables and proteins and maybe less of these other foods because you had them already at breakfast time. So that is really our main rundown of MyPlate. Like I said, I think a lot of you have probably seen this before, but you might not have been super familiar with what the point of MyPlate is. And we're going to revisit this topic a lot over the next 6 weeks, and most of the recipes that Miss Nicole will make with you guys are going to focus on incorporating most of the food groups, if not all of them, into each recipe. So I hope that you guys have learned something from this, and maybe at your next meal you can practice making sure you're getting at least of the 3 food groups, if not all of them, into your next meal.